This is a tour called the Reawaken America Tour. It's a far-right QAnon tour. And naturally, Trump has to be represented by his kids. Eric Trump showed up here and gave a speech about how much he loves his dad and how great he was and how much Biden sucks and all that. You know how it goes. So I wanted to give this a listen, see what Eric Trump had to say for himself and for his father. And while we do, we're going to play some Breath of the Wild 1. I'm just kind of going through, doing whatever. Shouldn't bother you too much if you've never played it. Should just be in the background. So, yeah, let's listen to Eric Trump complain about how persecuted he and his dad are and how bad and evil and mean Biden is. And watch me fail at Breath of the Wild, too.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty friendly Trump crowd. What the hell is going on with this state? So a little tidbit. I think many of you guys know this. If you were to break California off the United States of America, California would be the 5th largest economy in the world by GDP. Everybody knows this, right?
If you were to what?
I think many of you guys know this. If you were to break California off the United States of America,
if you were to break it off of the United States, no, it would still be part of the U.S. economy. It would just be its own island, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, it has a really big economy. It contributes a great deal to the federal economy.
California would be the 5th largest economy in the world by GDP. Everybody knows this, right?
I don't know if that's accurate. You got to distrust every word out of his mouth, but it would be a big economy. Okay, sure.
So you'd be right behind Japan and right ahead of India, but yet you have a...
I don't know that that's true. Like I said, check everything. You have to fact check every word out of their mouths. Do not trust. If he says the sky is blue, double check for real. Okay, go on.
California would be the 5th largest economy in the world by GDP. Everybody knows this, right? So you'd be right behind Japan and right ahead of India. But yet, you have a state that, based on shitty policy, literally runs out of energy in the afternoon. How could that even remotely...
Wait, I thought we were talking about California, not Texas. He's talking about Texas. Runs out of energy in the afternoon? No, that is Texas. He is unironically slandering blue states with problems that red states have. Oh, blue states have terrible economies, he said, from Kansas, an absolutely ravaged economy, as he's talking about New York. This is just like, this dude is absurd.
...be possible. You've got a state with some of the greatest natural resources anywhere in the world, with unbelievable people. And by the way, there are more MAGA Republicans in California. There's a lot of us here. There are a lot of us here.
Okay, I suppose there are probably a lot of, there are a lot of MAGA Republicans everywhere, unfortunately. I think they make up somewhere in the vicinity of like 30% of the Republican Party. 30% of the Republican Party. The other 70% of the Republican Party can't win elections without the MAGA wing. They must have the MAGA wing, like, voting for them and stuff. For that reason, Republicans can't win without MAGA, and MAGA can't win without Republicans. And I just think that they're going to keep losing as a result. I guess we'll see.
But yet you have a governor that kisses the feet of the Chinese president, doesn't do a damn thing for San Francisco.
What? Gavin Newsom kisses the feet of the Chinese president? You mean like your dad does? Didn't Trump just get through talking about how Xi is a fantastic guy? He's a great leader. He loves him. He's awesome and interesting and cool and does all this neat stuff like murdering, like giving the death penalty to drug addicts and dealers and stuff. Didn't Trump just get through saying that?
Until Xi comes into town and then tells you to turn off your air conditioners at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of the summer because... Okay,
I don't even know what he's talking about with this air conditioner thing. The Xi thing he's talking about, Xi Jinping just visited the United States, and he came to California. And I believe he met Biden there in California. He met Gavin Newsom. And as a dictator, Xi Jinping wanted everything to be completely perfect, and they set it up so that, within like, I don't know, a 4-block radius or however far it was all Chinese students, Chinese immigrants, and Chinese kids generally that were waving Chinese flags out windows and stuff like that. So Xi Jinping felt like more welcome in the U.S. That's the event that he's referring to here. But yeah, this is just like this isn't an example of Gavin Newsom or Biden kissing the feet of Xi Jinping. I think Donald Trump does a fine job of that himself. He doesn't need any help.
Because they can't keep a power grid alive.
He says I guess he's in California. He says as Texas literally has their own grid and it keeps falling apart. Every single year, their grid falls apart. It's ridiculous. Now, California's power grid doesn't have massive, unexpected, crazy big problems the way that he's describing. I mean, every power grid has some problems, I suppose. I haven't heard anything about California's power grid being in, like, bad shape. There was one time a couple years ago, I live in New York City, we had to, like, turn our air up to, like, 78 because there was a lot of strain on the power grid. So we didn't use our stove for a while, or our oven, because it was going to make it hotter in there. And we kept our air conditioner at a higher level and stuff. You know, we're trying to decrease the drain on energy. I mean, that's just welcome to the world. First time.
But this state's supposed to be the 5th largest economy in the world, again, if you were to separate it out from the United States. Guys, it's insane. How could this possibly happen?
You know, I have to look this up now. Is this happening? Does California have rolling blackouts? A rolling blackout. All right, let me explain power grids for a second here. I don't know how California generates the majority of its energy. Let me look. How does California generate electricity? Oh, wow. Geothermal resources, apparently, and solar power. Interesting. Well, let's just take like a nuclear power plant, for example. Okay, with nuclear power plants, they have these rods of some radioactive material, uranium or plutonium. I don't know what they're using. They have rods, and those rods are warm. And the more radioactive that those rods get, the warmer that they get. Radioactivity just means it's throwing off particles, like neutrons, basically. It's throwing off neutrons. And the neutron will run into another atom nearby and knock pieces off of that atom. And then it'll throw other pieces around. I mean, that's what radioactivity is. It keeps knocking these atoms apart. And when they break apart, it produces energy because you're basically converting mass to energy. That's the calculation. So it gets warmer and warmer and warmer. And a nuclear bomb is where that chain reaction goes critical and just is out of control, just explodes outward, right? But on a smaller level, you can get rods and you can create a mild nuclear reaction without actually going critical. And it gets warm around it, right? So you stick those rods in water to warm that water up, and you basically shoot gamma rays at it to break it apart faster and make it not quite go critical like in a nuclear bomb, but get it moving, get the reaction moving, basically. If it happens too quickly or it starts getting out of control, you put control rods in of lead, for example, to absorb the extra neutrons, and that slows the reaction and cools the rods off. Well, when you warm the water in the rods are in, it starts boiling, creates steam. The steam goes up and hits a turbine, like a big thing that turns. And as that thing turns, because of the steam shooting past it, it generates electricity. It's connected to two wires, basically, and those cables like go out, and they go out to like the rest of the state, basically, or the rest of the grid, the rest of the area, right? And people plug in their hairdryer and turn the hairdryer on, and the electricity that they're using in that moment is being generated at that moment. The electricity that I'm using to stream to you was literally just now generated in a power plant. People don't really realize that all the time. So anyways, the power grid has to generate a certain amount of energy every so often, like at certain times. And if people are all suddenly, I don't know, using their air conditioners at a rate that is unusual, for example, like if it gets up to 90 degrees, the grid doesn't have time to generate enough electricity to keep all of the air conditioners in this area running. So you have to either turn your air off or you have to slow it down, because if you try to draw more electricity than is available, the entire grid shuts down, and it takes forever to get everything started up again. It's a complete mess. So if there's a real issue where there's, you're at risk of the grid shutting down because too much energy is being drawn, they'll do rolling blackouts where they'll just turn off sections of the town for 10 minutes at a time to prevent it from going out, basically. There have not been rolling blackouts in California, to my knowledge, in 2023. Texas has rolling blackouts pretty frequently, apparently, because they are not connected to the rest of the U.S. grid. If they're connected to the other grids in the United States, then in worst case scenario, they could draw power from those other grids. For some reason, ERCOT, the Texas Power Company, decided to disconnect from everybody else. That was like the stupidest decision they could have made. Anyways, that's how nuclear power works. Coal power works similarly. It all works similarly. It's just generating heat to boil water to create steam to turn a turbine. Pretty much how it works. Wind power works by turning a turbine through wind, Anyways, California, I guess, if they don't have enough power generation, if they're, they need to add more generators or something like that, or it gets particularly hot, then they'll need to ask people to turn their air conditioners to 78 or something. The problem is that, these power grids can plan for particularly hot weather or whatever. Like, they can plan for the summer. They know in summertime it's going to be 80 degrees for most of, the summer or whatever. So if it's 80, then we need to generate this many megajoules of energy to keep this many air conditioners running, so on and so forth. They do that calculation. But then what happens if it reaches 100 degrees unexpectedly and out of nowhere, and it stays there for a week? Suddenly people have to draw way, way, way more energy than they thought they needed to draw. Way more energy than, the grid was prepared to handle. If they knew that was going to happen, they could have set up another power plant, or they could have, built out the infrastructure for it or whatever. But they don't know when these heat waves are going to strike exactly. And if they're just generating a bunch of electricity and it's not being used, it's going nowhere, it's a massive waste of money. Your electricity bill is going to triple. It's a massive waste of everything. That's why they don't build out extra power plants and stuff. The problem really with all of this stuff is the unexpected heat waves. It's climate change that's causing these problems. It's not, the fact that California is inept and incapable of running power grids adequately or whatever. That's just complete nonsense. And it's just their way of attacking liberals or whatever. Texas, on the other hand, it is Texas's fault because they disconnected from the other power grids intentionally. And also, ERCOT, the company, is about as crooked as it gets. They take advantage of people. They boost their electric bills sky high when they, at certain times when there are peak times. And for some reason, they're not increasing the energy supply coming through the grid in the first place. They very obviously need to add more reactors, but they just don't seem to be doing that. Anyways, those are the basics of what Eric Trump is talking about. But does this crowd know any of that? I doubt it. I would bet anything. They have no clue what any of that means.
But this state's supposed to be the 5th largest economy in the world, again, if you were to separate it out from the United States. Guys, it's insane. How could this possibly happen? And it's called awful leadership. It's called awful leadership, and guys, we're going to change that. We are going to change that. We are going to change that in the United States of America. So we've had a really interesting week, and something just happened as I was coming up here just now.
Like, this guy, does he even understand the basics of, like, the power grid and how it works? Probably not, right? He's just looking for an opportunity to, like, talk shit about people, right?
The head of the FBI office in Washington, D.C., who was responsible for the Russia investigation into my father, and everybody knows that there was no Russia collusion.
Yes, there was. There was, in fact, Russia collusion. I was talking about this the other day. Let me just give another quick rundown. The FBI monitors spies in the United States, right? They wiretap known spies for various countries. I mean, the U.S. has spies in China. China has spies in the U.S. Russia has spies in China. Russia has spies in the U.S. I mean, everyone has spies everywhere, right? That's just how geopolitics works. Well, some of the spies that operate on Russia's behalf in the United States were wiretapped by the FBI. They were listening to what they had to say. And for some strange reason, inexplicably, people in the Trump campaign kept calling and talking to these known Russian spies. It's like, what the hell? What is happening? Why is Donald Trump's campaign manager calling this known Russian spy? It made no sense at all. So they started an investigation into it called Operation Crossfire Hurricane to learn what was going on and what Trump's ties were to Russia, basically, or to the Russian government, and why they... Are you kidding me? I jumped and I fell. And why he was connected and why they were calling each other and all that stuff. They did, in fact, work together. They did collude. Trump's campaign colluded with Russia. That is true. That is a fact. Now, nothing came of it. If you just read the Mueller report, you will find that there was collusion. Nothing came of it because who's going to charge Trump with a crime? I mean, they weren't doing that in the first place. It's a struggle to charge him with something that he did out in the open, like support January 6th, for example. So anyways, yeah, that's the whole Russia collusion thing. Yes, he did collude with Russia, as a matter of fact. He did.
Office in Washington, D.C., who was responsible for the Russia investigation into my father, and everybody knows that there was no Russia collusion.
Yes, there was.
Just got arrested and sentenced to 4 years in jail.
Oh, yeah. I remember. I think, okay, I'm going to need to look into this, but I believe, before I look into it, I think the guy that looked into the Russia collusion case turned out to be a Russian agent and was charged with a crime. What was that? The Guardian. Okay. Former FBI spy hunter gets prison time for giving information to Russian oligarch. Right. That's what it was. A former FBI special agent who led a counterintelligence division was sentenced to more than 4 years in prison on Thursday for providing information to a Russian oligarch in violation of U.S. sanctions. I was looking for a date. Oh, December 15th, 2023 is when this happened. Charles McGonigal, 55, is one of the highest-ranking FBI officials to ever be convicted of a crime. He spent 22 years at the FBI before retiring in September 2018, leading investigations into the 2010 release of State Department classified cables by WikiLeaks and a hunt for a suspected Chinese spy working as a mole in the CIA. But in 2021, after he'd retired, McGonigal supplied information to the Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska to help him sink a business rival. Deripaska had been placed on a U.S. sanctions list in 2018, was attempting to gather information to get a competitor placed on the sanctions list as well. McGonigal received a payment of $17,500 for doing so, laundered from a Russian bank to Cyprus to a business bank account in New Jersey, and then to McGonigal's private account. Yeah, Cyprus is a really popular place to do business. Like, I worked with Surfshark once, a VPN company, Surfshark. They were a sponsor once. I think I did it twice, actually. I did a total of 2 sponsorships for them years ago. And the payment came from Cyprus, interestingly enough. Anyway, McGonigal was arrested in January 2023, is indicted on 9 charges. In August, pleaded guilty to 1 charge to avoid the other 8, namely conspiring to violate U.S. sanctions and laundering payments. Anyway, that's what the guy got in trouble for. Actually, I'm not seeing anything about him investigating Trump. It seems like he was just a really high up Yeah, he was just a high-up FBI agent. He was not connected to Trump at all. So, yeah, I'm not even actually sure what Eric Trump's talking about here.
Investigation into my father, and everybody knows that there was no Russia collusion.
There was.
Just got arrested and sentenced to 4 years in jail. And does anybody know why the head of the FBI in New York, who headed up the Russia investigation, got sentenced to 4 years in jail? Does anybody?
Okay, I don't know that he's like the head of the FBI in New York or any of that. He retired in 2018. So, yeah, I don't know what Eric is even talking about. Like, these are just lies, it sounds like to me, right? Is he just lying right now? Yeah, the dude's just lying here, right? He's just straight up not telling the truth.
I know. Because he was colluding with Russia. Isn't that really interesting?
I mean, the guy was, yeah, he worked with a Russian oligarch. I mean, we just read about it. But Eric is lying and twisting things around and everything. Is anyone surprised that Eric is twisting this stuff around, really? I'm certainly not.
The very same thing that they accused my father of doing, the head of the investigation was actually doing, and he's going to jail because of it now.
To my knowledge, he's not the head of the investigation. He retired in 2018.
You know, that's what you'll find with the Democrats. The Democrats always dig so deep that they end up finding themselves. They do it time and time again.
Wait. Does he think that this guy was a Democrat? This FBI agent? Does he have any evidence for that? Is he just, like, flying blind and saying whatever? He's just saying whatever, right?
The whole Russia hoax, they dug so deep that you know what they found?
Your mother.
They found Hillary Clinton.
I was close. No, it's completely made up. I don't even know what he's talking about here.
They found themselves. They dig so deep that if the Democrats ever did anything like 60% of the way, they'd be unstoppable. But they always go too far. But we were really happy to see that this guy's going to jail for colluding with Russians. My father never clearly did, but this guy's going to...
No, he did. He did. He colluded with Russia. I love how he's framing this up like this guy is a Democrat and worked with Russia to help Democrats and hurt Donald Trump, when in reality, the guy was completely unconnected from the Trump investigation as far as I can tell. He was completely unconnected from Democrats in any way at all, and he was simply trying to get richer, I guess. That's it. $17,000, really? Is $17,000 really worth 4 years of your life and all the risks that you took? That's insane to me, that this dude would have done such a thing. And besides that, why would he betray his country like that? For really just for money? Really? That's crazy. I would never betray the country for money like that. Well, perfect timing, Owen Unfilled. Right? I thought so.
Jail. We also had another interesting little tidbit this week, which was Hunter Biden. Did anybody watch that whole charade? So why is it that my brother...
Yeah, Hunter Biden was called to testify before Congress, and Hunter Biden said, I will testify before Congress in an open-door meeting so the public can see what's happening. And they said, nope, we're going to do it in a closed-door meeting. He said, okay, well, then compel me, basically.
He did, but this guy's going to jail. We also had another interesting little tidbit this week, which was Hunter Biden. Did anybody watch that whole charade? So why is it that my brother Don testified on Capitol Hill 40 hours, 5 different times, in front of
I'm not sure if that's true, but okay.
the House, in front of the Senate, for Russia collusion, something that was totally made up?
It was not made up, actually. There really was Russia collusion, and Donald Trump's campaign took part in that collusion. That's absolutely 100% true.
Yeah, Hunter Biden gets called in by Congress to testify because he's a scumbag, because he does drugs. He did every illegal deal around the world. He took...
Listen to Eric Trump talking about how Hunter Biden does drugs and stuff. Come on, man. Everybody knows that Eric Trump and at least Don Jr. absolutely does coke at a bare minimum. I'm very confident. I am confident enough to stake my reputation on it to claim that Don Jr. does coke. And look, Don Jr. was involved in the Trump administration. Hunter Biden is not. What does Hunter Biden have to do with anything? I don't give a shit what Hunter Biden's up to. If he gets involved in the Biden administration, then I give a shit.
Took money from every adversarial country that we have. He gets called in. Instead of testifying, my brother didn't want to testify. Of course he didn't, because he didn't do anything. All right?
Then he shouldn't have a problem testifying, right?
But instead of going up there and testifying, you know what he does? He gives a press conference.
I mean, you shouldn't testify with that. You should try to fight testifying anyways, even if you did nothing. This is just the logic that these people use is all.
Instead of testifying, my brother didn't want to testify. Of course he didn't, because he didn't do anything. All right? But instead of going up there and testifying, you know what he does? He gives a press conference on the steps of the Capitol, and he says that MAGA Republicans are beating him up.
Well, yeah, I mean, MAGA Republicans are extremist nutcases who are running an endless campaign of stochastic terrorism against him. Absolutely. And on top of all of that, MAGA Republicans, namely Marjorie Taylor Greene, God, how do I say it? Showed Hunter Biden dick pics on the House of the Floor, entered them into official record, showed the dude's dick pics. Imagine that with me for a moment. Imagine that happening to you and how you would feel about it. How messed up would that be? That is just wild on so many levels. So wrong. Seriously. So wrong that that would happen. I don't blame Hunter Biden for being unhappy with what they're doing right now, even though the dude's basically been completely silent, which is the intelligent decision. Just don't say a word.
So you leave a computer at a computer repair store. You're on too many drugs to remember to pick it up. You don't pay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't even believe that that story is real. I don't believe that he even left a laptop there. I'll explain in a second.
Pay for it. They open it up. You have hookers, illegal drugs, illegal deals all around the world. You go out and you buy a firearm and you lie on your 4473. All right?
All right, so about the laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop. I don't believe that there is a laptop. If there was a laptop, then it absolutely would have shown up by now. Like, clones of the hard drive would have shown up to be downloaded somewhere by now, without a doubt. It would have been spread all over the internet for everybody to get access to. But what happens instead? Not a hint of anything. Nobody seems to be able to have access. When Rudy Giuliani is asked to produce it, he says, oh, I gave it to the FBI. Yeah, and then I gave it to somebody else, and they said they were going to clone it, and I can't find it now. I just don't believe it exists. You know what I think what happened? Here's what I think happened. I believe, this is partially based on speculation, so take it for what you, so it's worth what you paid, which is nothing. I think that Russian operatives probably hacked into Hunter Biden's accounts, his Gmail accounts and his whatever, and gathered as much information on him as they possibly could, as they do, and they put it all on a laptop and found a laptop repairman that was blind and then brought it in and gave it to him under his name, Hunter Biden, and then just never turned it over or anything. Found a blind repairman that was a Republican that they knew was a MAGA nutcase. And it's that simple. Suddenly, this MAGA nutcase Republican owns this laptop and spreads the data all over the place. I really believe that's what happened. But I don't know. That's just me. Tell me what you think about it. How is Biden supposedly this dementia-riddled buffoon who can barely make a coherent sentence, yet is simultaneously a criminal mastermind? Just absurd. Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. That's kind of a tenet of fascism, though. Your enemy has to be simultaneously too strong to overcome and too weak, stupid, and inept to rule. You're way smarter and better in every way than your enemy. But they control everything because they're evil and they work together and they're masterminds. That's how the fascist rhetoric builds up. It's absurd.
You lie, you say you weren't on.
I believe someone spoofed him with a fake laptop. When they took it to be cloned, tech guy said, this is spoofed, and they had to dispose of it. Yeah, it could be. Don't White House employees have mandatory drug testing? Do they? Maybe. I'm not sure. That's possible. Either way, we're talking Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is not a White House employee, right? I know that's not what you're saying, but I'm just saying Eric Trump shouldn't, care about Hunter Biden. It doesn't matter. I don't know why anybody cares what Hunter Biden is up to. Now, as far as, Don Jr. goes, I'm not sure if White House employees have to be drug tested or not. I don't believe that Donald Trump himself would be okay with Don Jr. being on drugs. But either way, I've listened to some of Don Jr.'s speeches, some of the things that he's had to say, and some of the events that he's attended and stuff. The dude's on drugs now. He does coke. I have no doubt about it. How long does coke stay in your system anyways? 3 days? I don't want a hotline to help me with my coke addiction. Google, thank you. I'm doing just fine with my coke addiction without your help. 3 days, yeah. How often are White House employees drug tested? I mean, White House employees might be drug tested. Maybe. But Don Jr. is not a White House employee, never was. He's the son of the president. He's beyond that. He may work in the White House. He's not a White House employee. That's different. And from what I'm reading here, there's no drug testing policy in Congress or in the White House. Yeah, I don't think there's drug testing in the White House or in Congress. I could be wrong. That's tentatively what I'm seeing. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong there. You test positive for coke 3 days after use, and then it leaves your system, basically.
Deals all around the world. You go out and you buy a firearm and you lie on your 4473. All right, you lie, you say you weren't on illegal drugs, you weren't in possession of drugs.
I mean, this is such a cheap attack. Who gives a shit anyways about Hunter Biden? I don't. I'm certain White House employees do have mandatory drug tests. Yeah, maybe. I just, cursory search didn't turn anything up, so it's very possible that they do. I just, didn't look into it any further. So, you may be right. I just haven't looked far enough.
Lie on your 4473. All right, you lie, you say you weren't on illegal drugs, you weren't in possession of drugs. Your wife goes out and takes your handgun and throws it in a garbage can next to a school.
I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know if any of this is even true.
The Secret Service goes in and tries to get the paperwork from the gun store. We know all of these things happened, right?
Not really. I mean, a lot of this stuff is twisted, out of proportion, not accurate at all.
And MAGA Republicans are beating up on you. Yet, I'm probably the most subpoenaed person in the history of this country. I've received literally...
Really? You're the most subpoenaed person in the history of this country? Come on, bro.
All of these things happened, right? And MAGA Republicans are beating up on you. Yet, I'm probably the most subpoenaed person in the history of this country. I've received literally, no joke, 400 subpoenas in the last 7 years.
I don't believe you. I'm sorry. I don't believe anything out of this guy's mouth, truthfully. And cry me a river, anyways. You know what? If you don't want to be subpoenaed 400 times, just don't be involved in shady business dealings. I guess they're subpoenaing, Hunter Biden, and he didn't really, he's not involved in the White House in any way, but still. Eric Trump is about as dirty as it gets, in my opinion. Next to Don Jr., who is second only to Donald Trump himself.
And they will come after us, and they will come. But yet Hunter Biden doesn't have to testify, right? He's above it. And let me ask you.
He's not above it. He's eventually probably going to have to testify.
Do you think you're going to have 30 FBI agents go over to Hunter Biden's house with machine guns like they did at Mar-a-Lago? Do you think that's going to happen to Hunter Biden?
Well, if he steals classified documents, yes. Absolutely.
Do you think they're going to do what they did to Roger Stone, where they show up at, 5 o'clock in the morning outside his house, I don't know how old Roger is, right? 75.
Dude, why are they still defending that scumbag Roger Stone? And oh my god, I just hit a button and it jumped to a different part of the... I mean, this guy is just doing like a Gish Gallop of nonsense, right? He's just lying to the crowd over and over and over again. He's just like drilling in bullshit information nonstop. It's a fire hose of falsehoods is what it's called.
Where they show up at, 5 o'clock in the morning outside his house. I don't know how old Roger is, right? 75, somewhere in there. 30 guys, they tip off CNN, they show up.
Well, Roger Stone, I'm sure I don't have to say this, but I'll say it anyways. Roger Stone worked with Russia directly to receive hacked materials and information that would hurt his political opponents or his friends' political opponents, basically. He worked for Richard Nixon, was involved to some degree in Watergate. Seriously. And all the way back then, when he was working for the Nixon campaign, you know what he did? He was working for various different political campaigns, you know, not just like Nixon, but smaller congressmen and stuff like that. He donated $10,000 to one of his people's political opponents and got a receipt and slipped the receipt to the news. He donated $10,000 under the name of Socialists of America, gave the receipt to the news from Socialists of America to this politician or whatever, even though the politician didn't know who donated it, even though he wasn't connected to it at all, even though it wasn't even from Socialists of America. It was completely made up, all of it. That's the kind of dirty trick that Roger Stone likes to pull. Does it all. He's done it since the beginning. That's who Roger Stone is. That's what he's always done. And I honestly cannot even believe that Eric Trump is, like, defending him. I can't believe anybody is defending Roger Stone.
Up at his home. Do you think that's going to happen to Hunter?
Yeah, I mean, it will happen to Hunter if he did something like steal classified information or directly work with Russia. Absolutely.
Guys, we have an unequal system of justice in this country. This kid has gotten away with murder. If I did 1/1000th of what this kid had done, I'd be in jail for the rest of my life.
Oh, Eric Trump has absolutely done even more than Hunter Biden has. No doubt about it. I'm 100% sure of that.
You know, I'm very fortunate. I have a great family, great wife, great kids, great father.
Lies, like everything out of the dude's mouth.
We were always honest.
I mean, it's not even realistic at this point. Come on. Try to make the lies realistic.
We actually had a product to sell. That's really interesting. You know, the first question I always ask with Hunter Biden is, like, you have this massive, sprawling business. You're making millions of dollars. Where's your website? I mean,
are you upset that he doesn't have a website? And does he not have a website? He probably does have a website. Like, what are you even talking about? Maybe he was business to business instead of business to consumer. What are you talking about?
Is there any company in the United States that doesn't have a website? Like, where's your website?
Yes, there are tons of companies that don't have websites if they aren't business to consumer, for example. Tons of reasons for this.
Website, you know, and what are you selling? What are you selling? What product are you selling? Just place. You know what I do, right? We do hotel rooms and we do golf courses. We have wineries. We've got properties. We do real estate. What product are you selling other than finger painting to lobbyists and to the Chinese government? I mean, what product are you selling? Just answer that question. They can't answer that question.
I mean, that question is answered like 1,000 times over. I'm actually involved in a ton of stuff, personally. What am I selling? What would somebody say that I sell? I don't sell anything. I entertain. I talk to people. I work with people. And not only do I do YouTube, but I write. I write articles. I write books. And shit, I don't know. I do a ton of stuff. I worked on an Etsy store for a long, long time. Unfortunately, I couldn't keep that going for a variety of reasons. I wasn't there to manage it was really the problem. I had to move. But anyways, not everything that I do has a website. And not everybody knows everything that I do. Like, it appeals to certain subsets of the population. So, what does that mean? He consults with people. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. He consults with people. So what? Can't people consult with others? I'm a YouTuber. I know how YouTube works. I know YouTube like the back of my hand. I could very easily consult with some media company if I wanted to explain to them how to build a social media presence and keep it, you know. Tons of ways to do that. Tons of reasons people would pay me to work with them and stuff. Like, this guy is just finding conspiracies anywhere he possibly can.
He goes out the other day, and my father was not involved in my business dealings.
Really? Donald Trump's not involved in Eric Trump's business dealings? I think it's the other way around, bro. Eric Trump is only, like, Eric Trump only has a business because of Donald Trump.
You were selling your dad's name when he was vice president of the United States. You know the difference between them and us? Every dollar that we made from...
Oh, he's going to lie. You ready for this lie?
Any business that came through a foreign government. So if somebody checked into our hotel in Washington, and that person was associated with a foreign government, you know what I did? I donated all that money back to the United States Treasury because...
Bullshit. Bullshit. I call bullshit on that. I don't believe you for a single second. Donald Trump himself claimed that he was going to do something similar to that. He's going to donate all his salary back to the federal government or some other thing like that. And when it was found that he didn't do that, that he was called on it, then he had to donate it. And he did. He ended up donating it later, after he was called on it. I don't believe you for a single second. You got to be kidding. How would you even keep track of that? Somebody, like, what? I guess if they have a passport, you got to check their passport. And if they're from a foreign country, then you donate all that money to the treasury? Come on, bro. That is so unbelievable. It's ridiculous. Give me a break.
Business that came through a foreign government. So if somebody checked into our hotel in Washington, and that person was associated with a foreign government, you know what I did? I donated all that money back to the United States Treasury because that's the right thing to do.
Just bullshit. It's fascinating to me, though, that he knows what the right thing is, right? He knows that it's not okay to do blah, to take money from foreign governments. He knows that's not right. And he does it anyways, and then lies about it.
Do you think Hunter Biden was donating any money back to the United States Treasury?
I mean, Eric Trump was not doing that. That's complete nonsense.
The guy couldn't even pay his damn taxes, right? So clearly he wasn't donating anything back to the United States Treasury. Guys, this is...
No, he did. He paid those taxes. Basically, Hunter Biden didn't file taxes one year for some amount of money. I don't remember what it was. He ended up filing and paying that, and it was over. That was it. And in any other case, the IRS would have just, like, looked at it and said, okay, you owe us this much money. Give us this money, and we'll be on our way. I mean, this happens all the time. You can see examples of this all the time. That's just what the IRS does. But for some unknown reason, they decided not to do that with Hunter Biden. They decided to go after him on a gun charge and the taxes and the everything they could possibly get him on. It's just absurd.
This is what we're dealing with in the country, but it's sad as hell because we've got a two-tier system of justice. They won't do a single thing about it, despite the fact that...
Who is they? Says they won't do a single thing? Who's he talking about?
They have all the evidence on the computer. They know all the shady deals. His daughters, you know, family members through crazy structures who are getting paid by Romania, by Ukraine, by China.
Like, all of this is completely made up. You heard him lie a second ago brazenly, right? You heard him flat out lie when he said, anytime somebody who's connected to a foreign government came to a hotel, I donated the money back to the treasury. That's complete bullshit. I've never even heard that lie from them before. That's a brand new one, as far as I can tell. And, you know, they know they can get away with lying as much as they want because no one's going to fact check them. And if they do, Trump supporters are going to believe Trump people anyways, even if they're proven completely wrong. It's just absurd to me that this dude can tell any lie he wants, people will believe it, and then he accuses their political rivals or political enemies of doing this thing. It's nuts.
Diamonds were reportedly changing hands. Could you imagine if that was Barron Trump? Could you imagine if that was me? Could you imagine if I was doing shady deals and I was sending money to Barron's bank account?
I don't even know what he's talking about, but, I mean, the Trumps do that shit all the time.
Barron at 15 years old would be in jail. I would be in jail. My father would be in jail. Frankly, we wouldn't even have a trial. The trial would be over before it even started because of the weaponized system. And
God, he's such a victim.
These guys get away with absolute murder. And that's where we stand as a country. They've weaponized all our institutions. I talk about it all the time. They've weaponized the FBI. They've weaponized the CIA. I mean, the CIA came out. Remember the 51 whistleblowers that said that the laptop was misinformation, disinformation. That was all bullshit. Everybody knows that was nonsense, right? They did that.
No, it was Russian disinformation. It actually was. Even if the laptop was real, it was Russian disinformation. Without a doubt.
That to protect Hunter Biden and the crackhead. Yes, they did protect the crackhead, but they don't really care about Hunter. They care about the father, who is absolutely driving this country into the ground.
God, it's lie after lie after lie with this dude. You have to pull everything apart.
Right? So they've weaponized the FBI. They've weaponized the CIA. They've weaponized the Justice Department. They've weaponized judges all over the country. If you're a conservative, you don't stand a chance. They've weaponized education in this country. Everybody sees.
Right, because there are no conservative judges in the entire country, right? Every judge in the United States is left-leaning. Totally, absolutely.
In that, right? Look at Harvard. Look what's happening there. They asked the president of Harvard whether or not genocide against the Jews is acceptable.
That is not what was asked. Oh my God, dude. This guy does nothing but lie. Nothing but lie. If you weren't paying attention to politics at the time, you're unfamiliar with what he's talking about. I don't remember what it was. There was like a panel of the presidents of a variety of schools. A panel of presidents from Harvard University, Penn State, and a few others. I don't remember which ones. Anyways, there was a hearing by congressmen, and the congressperson basically asked each president of the school, if somebody says, you know, I want to kill the Jews, or if somebody like advocates for genocide, is that a violation of the code of conduct policy or whatever? And the answer is, as the president of the schools said, you know, it depends on the situation. It depends on like the context of what's happening, and they didn't want to talk about it. They wanted to avoid that conversation entirely. You know why? Because college campuses should be places where free speech reigns supreme. You're allowed to say anything, talk about anything. Any subject should be allowed to be discussed on college campuses. Now, should it be a breeding ground for propaganda? Of course not. But subjects should be allowed to be discussed on college campuses, and that's what Republicans have been screaming about this entire time, right? Suddenly, Republicans are complaining about presidents on college campuses not banning students for, in this hypothetical situation that didn't even happen, for saying gas the Jews. Like, this literally didn't even happen, and congressmen are screaming and complaining that they're not in this hypothetical scenario, saying, yes, these people would be kicked off of the college campus. What a completely ass-backwards situation. Seriously. Anyways, the college presidents basically said, if it crosses into action or behavior rather than thoughts, then that is a violation of the college campus code of conduct. It becomes harassment and whatever. So if you think to yourself, I don't like Jews, you can't be kicked off of the college campus. If you say to somebody, I don't like Jews and stand for genocide, whatever other thing, then you can be kicked off the college campus. That is what the presidents said.
Harvard, look what's happening there. They asked the president of Harvard whether or not genocide against the Jews is acceptable on Harvard's campus.
That's not what was asked. They said, is it okay for somebody to say that genocide is a good thing? And the Harvard person basically avoided the question largely because they didn't want to get into the political side of it. But when pushed, said when it crosses from thought to action, then it's a problem.
And you know what her response was? It depends on the context. I mean, they've weaponized higher education.
Like, what happened to these people constantly screaming about college campuses being safe spaces for blah, 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 whatever? What happened to all that? Suddenly, when somebody says something they don't like, they want to kick them off campus. They want to ban this speech. Seriously. This is such a joke.
Look at Loudoun County with those incredible moms, right? They've weaponized lower education. It's revisionist history. Somebody was telling me backstage a minute ago, you know, I wrote a great book about your dad. And I cited...
I wrote a great book about your dad?
All these different references online to, credible publications of great things that he had done. And I went back to look at the citations 2 years later, and I tried to click on them, and they were all gone.
Well, a lot of the citations here's what I came to find. I did a story on Scientology once, not too long ago, and I was doing so much research it was ridiculous. And I found I was checking citations. I had to check citations. I felt obligated to. And I found that when things were cited about Scientology, if the citations existed at all, like you click on it, it takes you to a 404. If they were cited at all, usually it was pretty trustworthy. But sometimes when it was cited, you click on it and it's not there. So I searched for the article name that was listed. I find the article name and I go to that article on that website, and it turns out it was written by Scientologists. It was written by them to demonize their political enemies or whatever. It's crazy. So yeah, citations being removed or deleted or erased or whatever, yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes people add citations, like fake citations, intentionally to mislead and misinform. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
They're all gone. They've literally deleted that history. They're doing that, guys, right now. They're rewriting textbooks. They're revising history to be exactly what they want it to be. And in the digital age, it's a whole lot easier than it's ever been before.
Yeah, I mean, this is completely made up. But let me just show you an example of what I'm talking about. Hang on. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so I was on Operation Freakout. Operation Freakout by Scientology was this thing where they tried to get this woman put in jail for a whole bunch of crazy stuff. They tried to get her put in jail. They framed her for I don't remember what, for attacking an embassy or something like that, when they were really the ones that did it. Anyway, I found that the Wikipedia page, the citation on it, it's a semi-protected page, and the citation led to nothing. So I didn't trust what I was reading, obviously. So I looked for it. I looked for the original article. I searched for it, and I found it. Tony Ortega's article double-crossed led to a 404 error originally. And then I found, like, after digging in even deeper, I found out that Scientology created this account under Tony Ortega's name on the Phoenix New Times and wrote this just awful article under his name about how bad certain people are and how sick and twisted Tony Ortega himself is and how good Scientology is. It's crazy. This is the article that I found that was cited on like the Operation Freakout Wikipedia page, that basically this is written by Scientology. Here's why this is supposed to be written by Tony Ortega, a reporter that is critical, very critical of Scientology. Here's why you should be skeptical about what Graham Barry and Robert Cipriano say about the Church of Scientology. Barry's been after the church for years, and he makes no secret of his desire to litigate the 45-year-old organization to its knees. This is written in 1999, by the way. They've been doing this shit since 1999 to Tony Ortega. An eloquent New Zealand-born attorney who lives in Santa Monica. Barry has enjoyed this role. Anyway, the point is, I don't know what this specific situation was referring to. It was probably really, really important to Scientology in 1999, but completely irrelevant now. But sources are faked all the time. That people are lied about all the time. And when that's discovered on reputable websites, the sources are taken down because they're not real. Anyway, I assume that's what he's talking about.
They're doing that, guys, right now. They're rewriting textbooks. They're revising history to be exactly what they want it to be. And in the digital age, it's a whole lot easier than it's ever been before. They're indoctrinating our kids with a bunch of crap that we don't want them to learn.
This is completely made up, all of it.
This is their intent. They're weaponizing the system. Look what they did with healthcare.
What did they do with healthcare? And who is they? Wait, didn't Donald Trump himself say that he was going to fix the healthcare system? I seem to remember him saying that, right? He's going to offer up a new healthcare solution, and then it never came. He said it'll be here in 2 weeks. Never got that healthcare system.
They weaponized healthcare. We all saw that. We still see it during COVID, and they cover it up every single day. Look what they did with the military.
What did they do? Again, who the hell is they? And what did they do with the military?
You know, Fort Bragg. Now it's called, what, Camp Liberty?
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, they renamed one of the camps or something like. Wow, Camp Liberty. What a terrible name for a camp, huh? Can you imagine naming a camp Liberty? Give me a break, dude. Fort Bragg. I think I remember this like forever ago. The military was talking about renaming one of the one of the camps because it was named after a Civil War veteran or something like that, right? So they renamed it from Fort Bragg to Camp Liberty. I mean, perfectly fine thing to do. I think that's what happened. Got to take everything he says with a grain of salt. I believe that's what happened, but why does he even care? I don't understand. What's his whole deal with this?
Camp Liberty? So we have the most embarrassing, disgraceful exit from Afghanistan based on pure incompetence.
You mean the plan that your dad drew up? Donald Trump drew the plan up that Biden followed to a T exactly. Why didn't Donald Trump pull us out of Afghanistan, for that matter? He claimed he was going to. He had 4 years to do it, and then he didn't. This is a joke, dude.
That's Joe Biden. And they're more worried about renaming the greatest military installation arguably on Earth.
Wait, greatest military installation on Earth?
To appease...
Oh, is he talking about Fort Bragg?
Who? Like, this is the priority of our military.
To appease who? Yeah, good question. To appease who? Who is being appeased by renaming it from Fort Bragg to Fort Liberty? I mean, I would like it if we didn't have forts and camps in the military named after Civil War veterans. That'd be cool. Like, I don't want anything in the U.S. military named after Robert E. Lee, for example, because that dude was absolutely terrible. Why does he care so much? I don't understand.
Military. I have friends who are in the military right now who are saying they spend more time on woke causes.
Okay, you know what? The most unbelievable thing about what he just said was the first 3 words that he used right there. I have friends in the military who say that they're spending time on woke causes, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I stopped after 3 words. It's just not believable beyond that.
Like, this is the priority of our military. I have friends who are in the military right now who are saying they spend more time on woke causes and paperwork and nonsense and seminars and desensitization than they do on actually learning how to fight.
Complete nonsense. I can't even believe that the veterans among the crowd are accepting this from him when he's basically attacking the U.S. military. The U.S. military is supposed to be, like, inviolable. And by the way, in all seriousness and in sincerity, the U.S. military is the strongest and best military in the world. The best trained military in existence. Honestly, it's the best funded. It's the strongest. It's the most well prepared. It's the most battle-tested. I mean, the U.S. military has been in war for the past 20-something years. We've been fighting a war, endless wars. The problem is that no amount of training can prepare you for real war. Russia tried to get their troops battle-tested by sending them into Syria, but yeah, it just, like, it wasn't good. It didn't work out. It sucked. U.S. military genuinely has real battle experience. Like, the top commanders in the U.S. military genuinely have fought wars, have guided wars, and the whole 9 yards. This guy's talking shit about the military. I cannot believe that he's getting away with this. It's bizarre to me that Donald Trump can talk shit about the military to a group of veterans who were actually in a war, and he faces zero repercussions. He faces zero blowback. In fact, the veterans agree with him. That blows me away, honestly.
Do you think they're worried about this in China? Do you think they're worried about this in Iran, of course?
Well, did China fight a civil war? And then the side that won, did they name things after, like, the loser of that civil war? No. So that's why China's not worried about that.
It's not. But this is what they've weaponized the military. Guys, they've weaponized everything. They've weaponized corporate America. If they don't believe in you, if they don't believe in your cause, you won't get hired.
Dude, this guy is such a perpetual victim, honestly. You don't have to talk about your stupid bullshit 24/7, FYI. If you want to get hired and you are a Trump supporter, if you so choose, you can say nothing about being a Trump supporter and you'll be fine. Honestly, if you talk about being a Trump supporter, you'll probably be fine. But these people have made it such a fundamental part of their identity, they shove it down people's throats. You can't be around a Trump supporter without being told how great Trump is. It's impossible. It's like my mom being a Jehovah's Witness, you know? She sets guidelines. She says, I will talk to you as long as we don't talk about religion. I say, okay, great. I mean, this is years and years and years ago, you know. I say, great, fine. I'm totally A-okay with that. Let's not talk about religion. And then she proceeds to talk about religion nonstop. That is all she talks about. And when I say, I simply disagree, seems we're at an impasse, she gets bent out of shape and says, you told me we weren't going to talk about religion. Yeah, dumbass, I did. What do you think is happening right now? Who the fuck do you think brought this up? Like, there's no logical thought to be found in there. Trump supporters don't seem to realize they are the problem. They are causing issues for people. They are the ones that won't shut up about it. They're the perpetual victims. They're constantly talking about this garbage. And Eric Trump, billionaire, is talking about how persecuted he is and his family and his dad. And blah, 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 oh, I'm so mistreated. Just give me a break, bro. Like, does he ever stop talking about how much of a victim he is, honestly?
They'll strip you of your bank accounts. They'll strip you of being able to host websites. They'll strip you of your ability to...
They'll strip you of They'll strip you of your ability to host websites? That is an oddly specific concern, first of all. And second, how? How would anybody do that? Anyone can host a website if they want. Anyone can host any website. What is he even talking about? Chinese history is literally just a list of civil wars. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. You got me. That's fair enough. But I don't think that I don't think the situation is, you know, really the same. I don't think it exactly transfers over. So anyway, okay.
To conduct business. We've seen that. They've weaponized every system. And guys, this is why it matters so much that we take back this country. People see what's happening out there, and they've allowed it to happen.
People clapping for this.
Look at January 6th. Look at January 6th.
What I find fascinating is that nobody said a word after January 6th. Everybody was dead silent. They watched it happen, and it was either condemnation about January 6th or it was silence. They didn't say anything. because January 6th was a genuinely horrific event, actually, and it was a full-blown insurrection that the American people watched unfold in front of us. So Trump Trump was so afraid it was toxic that he refused to pardon the January 6th people. He could have blanket pardoned them before leaving office, and he didn't. But slowly but surely, over time, they start slipping in these ideas, little by little, talking about how the January 6th people weren't so bad. Most of them weren't violent. Sure, maybe there were a couple of provocateurs in the, in the crowd, but by and large, they're just good people, honestly. They're just normal, good people, and they kind of had a point. The people who were there and just good people, they had a point. They were just, they were upset over how Trump was being treated. Matter of fact, everybody there was just upset over how Trump was being treated. And they're all good people. And none of them deserve to be in prison. People got 20-year prison terms. And before you know it, they're talking about how the January 6th people, every one of them, even the full-blown insurrectionists, don't deserve to be in prison and should be pardoned. Every one of them pardoned by the next president. That's what they're talking about now. I watched this same process happen with George Floyd. Dead silence until the moment that until like a month later, when people felt a little more comfortable bringing things up and demonizing his character. Henry Kissinger died a little while back, and Trump supporters were dead silent, had nothing to say about Henry Kissinger. And I was sure Trump was going to say something about Kissinger to defend his reputation or something, because Trump loves defending scumbags. To my surprise, he didn't say a word. And as a result, his supporters didn't say a word. They didn't even give a shit about Kissinger. They just let the guy die with a bad reputation. That was actually really surprising to me. And so what we're listening to now with Eric Trump, he is rehabilitating the reputation and image of the January 6th people when they were genuinely, honestly, actually running an insurrection against the U.S. government on Donald Trump's behalf. And Donald Trump encouraged it.
Look at January 6th. People showed up at the Capitol, and what? I mean, you see some of the charges that they're being thrown at them. So you no longer.
They're insurrectionists. These people. They're having 20-year sentences thrown at them. Some of them, Stuart Rhodes and Joe Biggs and others, because they planned an insurrection. They had a militia waiting right outside city limits to come in when it was time. They had weapons caches buried around the area to be dug up and brought into, people who they labeled as soldiers to fight against the U.S. government when it was time. Seriously, they were insurrectionists, period. And here we sit with them rehabilitating their image. It's wild to see.
Have the right to protest peacefully. You get charged under the Insurrection Act now if you show up at the Capitol because you don't like what your government's doing?
Oh, it was peaceful? You saying that January 6th is peaceful? Do I need to show the footage? I'm not even going to bother showing the footage. Everybody knows it wasn't peaceful. It was violent and ugly and horrific, and people died. And people were trying to take hostages. Trump supporters attempting to take hostages. They were looking for congressmen. They played their hand.
They've weaponized that system, guys. How about voter fraud in this country? You speak out about voter fraud, and guess what they do? They cancel you.
You can talk about voter fraud all you want. Even on YouTube now, they used to have a rule about spreading disinformation about voter fraud, not just the United States. The Brazilian election and some others. I don't remember which others were on the list. But you weren't allowed to spread disinformation about voter fraud. They removed that limitation. YouTube did. You're now allowed to talk about voter fraud to your heart's content. Unfortunately. I mean, I don't think that you should be allowed to propagandize and lie and twist information to deceive, intentionally to deceive, but that's just me. Anyways, you don't get canceled. I don't know what he's talking about.
They say you're a lunatic, and we all saw what happened.
You are a lunatic if you believe this.
right? I mean, whether or not every single person in here has direct evidence of it or not, I think everybody could see a person who could hardly formulate a sentence.
What, is that Joe Biden you're talking about?
Certainly couldn't do what I'm doing right now, right? He can't talk off the cuff.
He does do that all the time. What are you talking about?
He couldn't formulate a sentence. He never left his basement.
Yes, he did. I simply disagree, good sir. It seems we're at an impasse.
There was no passion. There was no emotion. There was no shtick. There was nothing. There was no gravitas. There was nothing. But what?
Well, there was emotion and gravitas and excitement about getting Trump out of the Oval Office. There was excitement about that, I specifically remember. That's what people cared about. That's what I cared about. That's why I would have crawled over broken glass to vote for Biden. I would have done anything to get this dude out of office because he's a fucking monster.
But he got 15 million more votes than Barack Obama? No one believes it.
I mean, yes, that did happen. It happened because there were more voters in 2020 than there were in 2008 or 2012. That's how population growth works. First time learning about this?
You know, I'd go all over the country, and I'd be speaking at venues across the street from him. So he'd be in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania at 2 o'clock on a Saturday. I'd go across the street. It's also Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, too. I'd have 1,000 people show up. The guy who was on the ticket couldn't fill the little circles he had. Does anybody really believe that this guy got more votes than Barack Obama did?
He simply did. I don't care if you believe that or not. That's what happened, and that is why he is in the Oval Office now.
I don't think anybody in this room likes Obama, but at least the guy had like a little bit of gravitas back there, right? And no one believes this nonsense. You know, but if you say that, if you come out against voter fraud, guess what? You'll get canceled. You'll get fired. They'll come out.
You'll get canceled by who? I mean, if you're bringing this shit up at work, then yeah, you'll get fired if you can't keep your fucking mouth shut about it at work. You're not supposed to be. It's a bad idea to bring up political issues at work. You really should leave religion and politics at home. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or whatever, that's just how it is. Whether you like it or not. You should not be bringing up politics at work. And if you are bringing up politics at work, you better be prepared to be fired. Again, these people don't even realize what they're doing most of the time, I believe. They don't even... It's such an integral part of their personality at this point that they don't even realize that they're talking about, like, politics nonstop.
After you, they'll attack you viciously. They've weaponized the system, guys. And I'll never forget, I tell this story all the time. My father came down that escalator.
Dude, it's just lie after lie with this dude. Seriously. I mean, I guess his dad came down an escalator. Okay, go on.
He ran. He always said, kids, we're going to learn who our friends are. We're going to know very, very quickly because it's going to be vicious. And the night that Hillary Clinton called to concede, I tell this story almost every time I speak. 12 minutes after Hillary called, and that was a great call to get, by the way, that shrieky little voice, you could kind of hear it in the background. She's the worst.
Why is he like this?
12 minutes after she concedes, the Washington Post does a story. This is when the impeachment of Donald Trump begins. They never even gave the guy a damn chance, guys. They never.
Okay, I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know if this is true. Everything else he said has been a lie up to this point. Nearly every single word out of his mouth. But we don't need to give him a chance because he took the chance whether it was given to him or not. He was the president. That's just what it is. And then he legitimately committed high crimes and misdemeanors. He legitimately did things to get impeached and indicted. And here we are now. He's impeached twice. Only president ever to be impeached twice. And that's one that you can't take away. Just, I love everything about it.
Never even gave him a chance. He had just won the election. Hillary had just conceded, and 12 minutes later, the Washington Post is writing a story. This is when the impeachment of Donald Trump began, and that's when...
Yeah, I don't even believe him. I'm sorry, man.
Impeachment 1 started, and that's when impeachment 2 started, and that's when the Russia hoax started, and that's when all these fake allegations by Hillary Clinton...
Right, Hillary Clinton did all these fake allegations? What?
Came out, And that's when they started going after Kavanaugh, and that's when they started going after every single person who was close to my father. That's when I started getting subpoenaed. That's when Don started getting dragged in front of Congress. Every single person in his orbit was attacked. They didn't give him a damn chance. And this is the deep state that we as a country, guys, are fighting for. And
they're fighting for the deep state. Great. My God, everything out of this dude's mouth is a lie.
this is why, as a family, we're so damn passionate. We are so damn passionate. We have to save this country.
But you know what else? This guy swears like a lot. Now, I swear a lot, too. I have no problem with that. I'm perfectly fine with swearing. I think it should be more normalized. But this is a crowd of evangelical extremist nutcases. I would think that he would want to avoid swearing, right?
Our country's going to hell. And look at the mess that we're in right now.
Check it out. Look, there's an ad on the bottom. Protect your wealth against record inflation with bh-pm.com. Let's look. Let's see what it is. It's a scam, I'm sure. Let's see. What was it? pm.com? Oh, God, I hope this isn't a porn site. Please tell me it's not. Okay. It's just a precious metals exchange. Buy gold. Exchange your entire retirement fund for gold. Yeah, it's a scam. Complete scam. Don't fall for that shit. Okay? So sad, man.
Does anybody think does anybody think Russia would have invaded Ukraine if Donald Trump was in office?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I think that was the plan from the start.
Does anybody think Israel would be dealing with the nonsense it's dealing with if Donald Trump was in office?
Is he saying that he doesn't think that Hamas would have attacked Israel if Trump had been in power?
By the way, he was the single greatest president in the history of this country to Israel. And by the way, and to religion in general. He's
the single greatest president to religion, dude. He can't just leave it at he was very religious, which he wasn't. But he can't even leave it at that. It has to be hyperbolic, ridiculous nonsense. It must be.
He's the single greatest president. But could you imagine if the Palestinians attacked Israel when
It was Hamas, not Palestinians, but okay.
And by the way, and to religion in general. He's the single greatest president. But could you imagine if the Palestinians attacked Israel when my father was in there? Now, let's just talk about this attack for a second. They launched thousands of rockets, right? Thousands.
I mean, they have piss-poor homemade rockets that they've been launching. Hamas has been launching into Israel for, for years and years. And Israel just repels them, basically instantly, especially since they have Iron Dome. Iron Dome, I believe, was given to Israel by the United States to defend from missile attacks, and it just shoots down missiles as they come in. So Israel has never really had anything to worry about from Hamas, not seriously. Now, some really horrific, sad things happened to innocent Israelis on October 7th. I'm horrified by what happened to innocent people on October 7th, 2023, at the hands of Hamas. Disgusting. But that does not excuse what Israel did next, which was committed a genocide, collective punishment against a group of people simply because of what one small group inside of the country did. Just disgusting and horrific.
At the same time, they had people who went through a big fence, took over Israeli outposts that had a lot of troops in it, right? They had guys in paragliders that went over the fence, and you saw the carnage that they just went in, they started shooting, right? The concert goers in a lot of towns and everything else. This was thousands of people that it took to put on this attack. This was an attack.
Thousands of people that it took to put on. Well, I'm not even sure how many people were involved, but yeah, okay. I guess Hamas has thousands of people involved, sure. There are like 6 or 7 million Palestinians, I believe. So sure, thousands of people, yep.
Attack against our greatest ally in the Middle East by far, hands down, not even close. If this had happened under my father and our CIA missed this and our NSA missed this, my father would have been run out of Washington, D.C. the next day. Did anybody notice how not a single person asked the question how America with our $800 billion military budget, and then there's a lot of money up and above that for intelligence and other things, miss the fact that 2,000 people in a country that's roughly 20 miles long, at least the Gaza Strip is 24 miles long, a couple miles wide, how 2,000 people could have orchestrated an attack that probably took them months and months to plan?
Well, it took them longer than that, probably.
And we missed it? If Donald Trump was commander-in-chief...
What does that mean, we missed it? We missed the attack. I mean, we aren't even monitoring Palestine, presumably. That's not our thing. I'm sure Israel is monitoring Palestine, has been for a long time, and I would truly be surprised if they didn't know that this stuff was already on its way. Like, I'd be surprised if Israel was taken by complete surprise in this situation. They probably knew something was brewing. Maybe didn't know when, maybe didn't know exactly what it was or whatever. But they probably, they have intelligence networks that, reach deep. I'm sure Israel had an idea something was going to happen, something big probably.
I'm telling you, they would have impeached him that day for absolute incompetence. But guess what? Joe Biden gets a pass.
No, this is, God, everything out of his mouth is propagandistic bullshit. It's all lies, nonstop. It's crazy. I didn't know you could fit so many lies in like a single sentence or a single speech. It's honestly impressive. It is a masterclass in propaganda, honestly.
He always gets a pass. And where was he? He was at his beach house because that's where Joe Biden always is. He's at his damn beach house.
Okay, look, I don't think he doesn't even have a beach house, does he? Was he at a beach house? I know he has a home in Delaware that he goes to from time to time. Was he there when the attack happened? I don't know. Maybe. I don't really care if he was like at a different place when something happens. But listen to this dude talking about Biden. I really don't care. Donald Trump spent so much time golfing, it was ridiculous.
And I always say this, it's really amazing. They're always missing in action. So when we had that big transportation problem 2 years ago during COVID, remember none of the ships could come into Port of L.A. and all those places? Pete Buttigieg, where was he? He was on paternity leave.
Uh-huh.
Why?
I guess that outrages this group because fathers should not take time off work to be with their kids.
Wouldn't you be on paternity leave when you can't get anything, when you can't get 2x4s into the United States of America? Why wouldn't you be on paternity leave?
When you can't get 2x4, what the hell is he talking about, dude? I am so lost. Like, I don't understand.
And then you have Kamala Harris, who was born.
It's Kamala Harris.
Czar for like 36 hours, right?
Border czar for 36 hours. Again, what?
So he makes her border czar. She's actually even more incompetent than he is, which is shockingly hard to believe. So 24 hours after he makes her border czar, guess where she goes?
Your mom's house.
She goes to Vietnam, because why wouldn't you go to Vietnam if you were...
Like, it's propaganda out the nose with this dude. It's non-stop propaganda and lies. Truly impressive to fit so much bullshit into a single sentence.
Charge of taking care of the border, the southern border of the United States of America, right? And then you have Afghanistan, the withdrawal. Where was Biden during that?
At the White House. He must realize that the president does not directly, he's not like the general that directs troops from place to place, right? He has generals to do that for him, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff communicate between the president and the army and the military to get major decisions from him. He certainly knows that, doesn't he?
He was in Delaware, because why wouldn't you be in Delaware on the beach?
Well, I don't know if he's on the beach, but yeah, why wouldn't you be in Delaware? Sure.
After 20 years of fighting a war and thousands of people dying and literally trillions of dollars.
And that was Biden's fault, of course, right? Because Biden, yeah, where was Obama on 9/11? What was he doing on 9/11, right? I've heard people unironically and seriously ask that question. Where was Obama on 9/11, and why wasn't he doing something to stop it? when George Bush was the president on 9/11. And he was reading to a bunch of kids. What was he reading? Like the Very Hungry Goat or something? Isn't that what Bush was reading? George Bush 9/11 kindergarten. Wow, I typed George Bush, and that was the first thing that came up. Here you go.
Yeah, I remember we had to wake up extra early and get to school. And I just remember pulling up, and it felt like a movie or something.
On September 11th, 2001, Dynasty Brown and her second grade classmates at Emma E. Booker Elementary School were waiting for a special visitor to join their reading class. Good morning, boys and girls. Good morning. Good morning. President George W. Bush was visiting the school to promote his nationwide education initiative. In the middle of reading to a class, President Bush was alerted of an attack on the World Trade Center in New York.
Yeah, and he just sat there and stared into space for a minute. I remember hearing about this. Actually, when I heard about it when I was younger, look, I was not allowed to have political views when I was younger because Jehovah's Witness, no political views allowed, right? My Pet Goat, that's what he's reading. Okay, there you go. Anyway, I wasn't allowed to have political views. So I wasn't a Republican and I wasn't a Democrat. But looking back, I see that I did have political views at the time. And they were like scattershot. They were all over the place, bizarrely. Some of my political views, for example, one of them was the Iraq War was a righteous and deserved war. It was the right thing to do because Iraq attacked us on 9/11 and we have a right to defend ourselves. Real, I'm not joking. That's what I thought. Of course, Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. It was the wrong country, and George Bush built up this huge propaganda campaign to convince people of that. It's fascinating to see what gets through to normal people, right? But so I was kind of Republican a little bit. But at the same time, I remember thinking to myself, I remember hearing about this when it happened. Somebody told me George Bush was reading My Pet Goat to kindergartners when it happened. Someone comes up, whispers in his ear, sir, the country has just been attacked. And he sat there for 11 minutes staring into space, 11 straight minutes like this. He was staring into space for all that time, doing absolutely nothing, just sitting there staring for 11 minutes. And then he continued reading My Pet Goat to the kids while the country was like under attack. That's what I was told originally. Of course, that's not how it happened, but
Something was bothering him, and it's kind of like he was in another world.
Sandra K. Daniels was the teacher in the classroom that day.
What happened? Did I do something wrong? Or did I say something wrong?
Less than half an hour later, the president broke the news at a press conference at the school.
2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. Terrorism.
Wow, they set up, I didn't know that. They set up a press conference thing at the school for him to announce it. I had no idea that's where it was announced.
Against our nation will not stand.
19 years later, Daniels and Brown reflect on their shared experience that day.
They were carefree, innocent children. We went from high emotions that morning to whoosh, low emotions.
I remember she was saying,
That's really interesting. Anyways, yeah, that's beside the point, but I thought it was worth going into. Okay, let's keep talking about Eric Trump for a second here.
Being embarrassed in front of the entire world, why wouldn't you sit at your house in Delaware instead of the White House actually trying to take care of the problem?
Yeah, or why would you sit there and stare into space for 11 minutes and then continue reading My Pet Goat? No, that's not how it happened in all seriousness, but yeah. This is just propagandistic garbage. Like, that's what these people are best at, and it honestly blows me away that this dude can fit so many lies into a single sentence. It's truly impressive. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. This dude's absolutely terrible.